Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. Now, as regular listeners will know, I do write a tech column for Cyber News, which is based in Lithuania, which is also where today's guest is located, Rytis Loris. And he's been on the show before talking about his story and what they do at Omnichannel. But I've invited him back on the podcast today to talk about iOS 15 and how it's making marketers nervous, because it's going to be ending open rate tracking and bringing a fundamental change to email marketing best practices. So buckle up and hold on tight, so I can beam your ears all the way to Lithuania, where Rytis Loris is waiting to join us once again on the podcast to talk about what email marketers can expect from iOS 15 and a few tips and tricks to make it all a little bit easier. So a massive warm welcome back to the show. And for anyone that missed our first chat, which was, I think it was 18 months ago on episode 1148, can you remind the listeners with a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, hello. Thanks for inviting. It's really great to be here again to visiting your podcast and talking to our listeners. So I'm Rytis. I'm co-founder and CEO of Omnichannel, and Omnichannel is a marketing automation platform built for anyone who sells online. So whatever you sell, if you own your online store or you do sell on Amazon, so we can help you to retain your customers, communicate to your customers via email, text messages, web push notifications, sync to your Google and Facebook ads. So basically, retain your customers and increase your sales.
And I think so much has changed since we last spoke. I think actually the last time we spoke, I was just flying back from Chicago after going to a tech conference. Those were the days, right? Can you remember those days?
Yeah. Actually, my last flight was the same. I came from Palm Springs, the e-commerce conference, and since February of 2020, I haven't been on plane, so I miss it a lot.
Yeah, me too. And of course, another thing that's changing is since we last spoke is iOS 15. There's a lot of talk about it at the moment, and it's destined to end open rate tracking and bridging a fundamental change to that 20-year-old email marketing best practice. But can you set the scene and tell listeners exactly what's going to be happening with this iOS 15 update?
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point. And this is the fundamental change on one hand. On the other hand, I would say, although those practices were for already here for 20 years, but those were not the best practices anymore, like really relying on open rates as a primary metric. Still, a lot of marketers do that. We track opens as a fundamental, a primary metric. So basically what's going to happen this fall, there is no exact date set, as iOS 15 will be rolled out to all the iPhone, iPads and Mac users. So that any email which you will be sending to your audience, and which will be opened or read, or not even opened, but just they basically delivered to Apple Mail, will be marked as read. Due to kind of like small technical thing, because all the email service providers, Omnisend and all others, we do track opens via Pixel. So basically, once images are being loaded, we track it and we see that, okay, image has been loaded. That means that email has been opened. So Apple and after the update of iOS 15, what they're going to do, they're going to automatically download all the images through the proxies. So basically, there are two main changes. So all the emails seem to be opened, which will not be the true. And the second thing, because they will be downloaded through the proxies, basically the geolocation or send time optimization will not make sense anymore, as well as the features which have been used quite broadly and for some of the businesses were quite important. So those two things gonna change. And technically, it's not that all of the Apple users will have to opt into it. It's optional, but how they implemented it, it's really like, I have no doubts that 90% of Apple users will opt in, because basically you just have to click, and the text is quite worrying that if you don't want to if you don't want to keep your privacy safe, opt out from this. Yeah, something like this, which seems to be quite scary. So definitely it will be the case. And in certain countries, like in the United States, the UK, Canada, Australia, Apple Mail as a mail client penetration is significant. It's up to 50%. So basically you could expect that 50% of your emails sent to your audience will be misinterpreted and mistracked, that they have been opened, which will not be the true.
And I'm curious, what does that mean for email marketing? Because I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of marketers sweating a little bit, or a lot not prepared for what's coming.
Yeah, true. So just if I may, so there is like one good resource which we launched, is opensadet.com. So there's kind of one resource about everything, how to prepare, what does actually mean, a lot of good tactics, practices coming from us, from Omnichannel, but as well as from industry. We just collect different opinions and leaders in the market, and experts and their opinions. So very great source for anyone who is really curious or maybe worried about what to do and how to prepare. Opensadet.com. So you can visit and at any time find valuable information there. And like a few tips how to prepare. So initially, definitely we will have to change. Marketers, we will have to change how we think about email marketing. So it will become a little bit more similar to what SMS marketing is, but an SMS, you never had an open rate as a metric. So basically relying more on the engagement metrics like clicks, like conversion, like website visits. It's one thing. Second thing is like how your email service providers or marketing automations platforms will prepare, and what capabilities will provide you. That's another aspect. So what we see and how we're going to help our customers is really cross-channel engagement metrics. So if a customer is, we don't know if the customer reads email or no, because there is no click recorded, but we know that the customer is constantly visiting your website and maybe reading your web push notifications. So we really know that the customer overall is engaged with us. We're just not sure about the email engagement, but overall the customer is engaged. So this cross-channel engagement, there's going to be another help to marketers to identify those customers who are still active, or maybe those who are not active anymore. So those couple of things which I would really encourage you to think through, your strategies, your tactics, and it's nothing bad will happen. That's for sure. Opens are dead, but email is not dead. And that's probably what we have to agree on. And we have to be sure about that, especially if you do sell online or if you have any transactions online. So email will remain as an extremely effective channel. You will just lose one piece of data. And that's just a thing. It's more emotional than a threat to the overall effectiveness for an email.
And I will add a link to the show notes just so people can find that information. But is there any other valuable or actionable tips on how marketers can, or especially email marketers, can get ready for this change?
So one thing which I would advise, like to do prior to this change becomes effective, so is really to take care of your list hygiene. So the good practice is at least once per 12 months, once per 6 months to clean up your list, removing those who are not engaged with you anymore. So usually this has been done based on the open rates. So I would advise anyone, email marketers, to do this list hygiene currently before the fall. Yeah. So in the coming month to do that, still based on the open rates, as you do have still open rates data. So this one. Second one is really already now start thinking about clicks as a primary metric and other engagement metrics as your primary metrics. What are those other engagement metrics? It's like how much time did they spend after they click on your website? What pages have they visited? Do they visit your website not from email? So all those like surrounding metrics or secondary metrics, which if you're a marketer, usually you do have this. Maybe you have not tracked or like paid attention up until today, but just, start today, paying attention to those metrics, tracking them, and really making them as a primary metrics to your tactics.
And it does feel like the entire space is evolving right now, almost in real time, right in front of us. But what do you think the future holds for e-commerce and email marketing?
So, as I said, I believe that the future is bright, yeah. and still email will remain as a most effective retention marketing channel. Yeah, it's never was an acquisition channel, but like for retention marketing, it will remain. Yeah, it will be just a bit different, a bit maybe more difficult to track certain things. And I believe that Apple will be followed by other main players like Google with Gmail, etc. with those changes, because it's for those large companies, it's very, very good to have this privacy argument. But actually, what do they make? They try to limit your ability to use your owned audience and to pay more of them to drive traffic to your website, to your online store. So those changes definitely are happening, but I think nothing like threatening is not happening now. Another thing which is extremely important is really to all the marketers, if you do not do it yet, so really augment email with other channels. So SMS is highly effective. Web push notification, they show really, really great results. So all those channels, you should be using them equally in parallel to email if you are not using it yet. So probably that's another shift which is happening. And if you are not using it, so you will be late to the party in a couple of years.
And it's not just about email. I think there are so many other communication methods now, and we carry our smartphones everywhere. So the question I've got to ask, of course, is how is SMS marketing evolving? And are there any tips you can share on how to stay ahead of the game there?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, and very good question. So SMS is definitely living its renaissance, and it's absolutely effective. And in 2020, we made a comprehensive research of our customers. So we saw that conversion rate of text messages, SMS, has increased by 100% in 2020, 102% to be accurate. So that's kind of a really impressive growth in effectiveness of a channel due to a couple of reasons. One, people are willing more and more to subscribe, leaving their phone numbers, because they are sure that they can stop at any point. In like United States and Canada, you just reply with a stop, and that's how you opt out. In other countries, providers just insert a short link to unsubscribe, similar as on the email. So people consumers, they trust SMS as a channel more and more, and they are not afraid to leave their phone number and subscribe via phone number, which was the case a few years ago. So definitely SMS is becoming like more and more effective. And why SMS is so effective? Because basically it's a channel where the message, you cannot avoid it. I mean, it's in the inbox, you get lost among the other emails, and people maybe sometimes read emails once per week, especially the promotion tab where your promo communication is landing if you are using Gmail, and with SMS, so you are kind of a little bit forced to read. Yes, definitely limitation in characters you have, but the upside is way bigger of that. And to what you said, Neil, is really we carry our phones everywhere. So basically, we can continue our digital journey from the SMS. So basically, clicking on the link, opening website, and completing the conversion, which we would like our customers to complete. So yeah, definitely SMS, it's one channel which I would really encourage to use, but there's still a challenge. What we see among our customer base, that in comparison to email list size, SMS subscribers list size is way, way, way smaller. So I would really encourage all the marketers to work more to drive subscription for SMS, to get opt-ins, to permissions to use this channel to communicate with your customers. Another channel which I would like to emphasize a little bit, so it's web push notifications. So basically browser push notifications, which are highly effective as well. And like 5 years ago, they were trendy, and a lot of especially e-commerce marketers, they tried them out, but then kind of like they just became a little bit forgotten. But what we see among our customer base that really drive like enormous conversion rates, 20 8% conversion rate for web push notifications. So that's another channel which I would really, really suggest everyone to play with and to use, because you would really find really great results there. And it's very cheap channel to do as well.
Which brings us nicely up to omnichannel marketing. Are there any trends that you're noticing right now, and how are you helping your customers overcome challenges around that too?
Yeah, so definitely kind of combining those channels, and there are two ways how you can combine. So there are more and more marketers who do multi-channel marketing using those email, text messages, push notifications, messengers. But the best practice, what we really advocate for, is really to have it all in one place and on one tool and on one flow. So basically, like, just, to simplify it and to explain it, it's basically, if we are targeting the customer A, so it's way better to do it like coordinated. So send an email. If email is being ignored, then you can send text message, then you can follow up with a web push notification. So instead of using 3 different tools and then bombarding your customers with the same message through different channels at the same time, let's say, orchestrate them. And this is where real omnichannel is all about. So when you orchestrate communication, the same messages through the different channels on the relevant time, because you do track your customer behavior and you automate communication. So that's where real omnichannel is like playing role. And that's why, like, it makes your marketing way less intrusive and way more effective.
And we've talked about how the entire industry is changing and evolving right before our eyes, and businesses are having to adapt to keep up to speed with it. What role do you see Omnisend playing in this future, and how are you guys evolving to keep up with that too?
So I think once we started like to evangelize and to advocate omnichannel approach, we were pretty early in the market, and that was a fundamental belief that the future will be omnichannel, both for the commerce. That means that us as consumers will be able to buy where we prefer to buy. Either it's going to be like brick and mortar stores, online stores, social media, whatever. I mean, whatever comes in the future, Facebook, TikTok, maybe platforms which we don't even think about today. What we see let's say in Asia, those video real-time shows and real-time buying. I mean, that's amazing trend, which we don't have much in, let's say, in the Western world, but there is another way of purchasing. There are 24/7 TV broadcasts which show just different products, and you can buy immediately by watching TV. So there are different channels, and definitely that's where Omnisend plays a role. So we believe that marketing has to be omnichannel as well. So we unite all the different channels which are relevant, which does drive results to brands, to marketers, and to retailers, online retailers. So that's the role we play, and we continue playing, really spot the channels which could be effective, and that add them to omnichannel orchestration.
Love that. And that is not the only things that have changed in the last 18 months. Something I also do on the podcast now is I ask every guest to share a song or piece of music that has inspired them in their career in tech, or just helps them get their head in the zone before they go on stage or go in a big meeting. And then we add those songs to a Spotify playlist to hopefully inspire other people out there. So pressure is on, my friend. I'm going to ask you to add a song to that playlist, and a reason why. Is there anything that springs to mind?
Yeah. So recently, there's a Bryan Adams Summer of '69. I don't know why. I have no reason, have no explanation, but just the song which really keeps me energetic this summer. Although it's not 69, but.
Is that because it reminds you of you getting your first real 6-string? Is that right?
Might be,
Love that. Well, I'll add that to the playlist. But before I let you go, for anyone wanting to find out more information about Omnisend, that link that you mentioned with all the useful information as well, if you just remind the listeners of that, and I'll add them to the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for that. So yeah, opensadet.com. So it's all about iOS 15 changes. About Omnisend, it's omnisend.com, and we have blog, we have resources, so can find a lot of valuable information. Although you're not our customer, but I believe if you are an email marketer or you do sell online, so you can find a lot of good tips and tricks and valuable insights and case studies there. And yeah, myself, I prefer using LinkedIn. So Regis Loris, you can find me on LinkedIn. I post there about e-commerce, about email marketing, or business overall. So really would glad to connect to anyone.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come back on the podcast, sharing those tips and tricks about e-commerce, email marketing, SMS marketing, omnichannel marketing, and so much more, and how businesses can prepare for iOS 15. I know it is a hot topic at the moment. Hopefully we won't leave it 18 months till we speak again. Who knows? We might even meet at a tech conference. Who knows? But more than anything, thanks for joining me again.
Fingers crossed to meet in person. Thanks for inviting. Pleasure to talk to you.
So I cannot thank today's guest enough for coming back on the podcast and sharing his valuable and actionable tips on how email marketers can get ready for the change that comes with iOS 15 and what it means to email marketing and how marketers can prepare for those changes. And as I said this time and last time, here's one of those people I could chat to for hours. I am planning on visiting Lithuania, hopefully when things open back up, so I can see my virtual colleagues at Cyber News and hopefully today's guest too. As for everybody listening, wherever you are in the world, I want to hear from you. I want to hear your questions, insights, what you like, what you don't like, if you want to come on the podcast, whatever it may be. I am the easiest guy in the world to get hold of. You can get me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram at Neil C. Hughes. My email address is techblogwriter@outlook.com and my website is techblogwriter.co.uk, where you'll find over 1,700 podcast interviews. Man, how did I do that? Okay, well, I'll be back again tomorrow with another guest. So a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.